Okay, so we took a little break and we're back uh, for another session of relatively unstable,
Yeah.
what do you call it? Informal, not quite therapy. This one hopefully will just be airing some things out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think
I,
so.
I
I
think
think
so,
so.
right? And so this is Tiffany and
Andrea.
Andrea, and we are relatively unstable. So make sure you like, follow, and share if you like us. And, if you got a good heart, better than mine, do it anyway.
Just do it anyway. Just hit that share button.
I'm a hater, so don't be like me. So, everybody is going into this weekend, and we had a new kind of Mother's Day last week, and Andrea and I thought that it would be a good time to talk about some of those things, especially after our last episode when we touched on some things about who we are and how we got to where we are and who we've become. And then Mother's Day pops up, and Mother's Day can be, for as celebratory as it is, can be a little bit weird for folks. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then I personally had an eventful week in my own family that kind of had a mothery theme to it. So, we thought we'd kind of touch on that. And Andrea, I'm disappointed in us because we really, really need to have some guys on today.
Yeah, that would be nice.
We really need to have some guys
Yeah.
on today. So if you uh, are an open, honest, about your shit type of guy, holler at us, slide into our DMs on this front.
Right.
And
On this front only, please.
and let's chat because we would like to get some of those perspectives. And I can just to kind of get us going, share a little bit about what I experienced this week. And in a nutshell, it was, Mother's Day is a hard day for me because I have a complicated relationship with my mom, and I have a complicated relationship as a mom, which is weird. And I'm what my therapist described as somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And but to further that, I had some revelations about my dad's mom in her life this week, which just sent me reeling into this um, space that I've never been in, and I found some things out about her, but it wasn't even so much about her. It was about my dad and his relationship with her. And that got me to thinking, and I started doing some digging, and I started talking to my dad's sister, who I just proudly call my aunt at this point, about her relationship with her mom, and it just spiraled.
Mm-hmm.
And then Andrea, you and I had talked before just about us being women and our relationships with our moms. And so how was your Mother's Day?
So my Mother's Day was pretty good. Every Mother's Day I have so I always go over my mom's house on Sundays, and even it's been less during this COVID thing, so I don't go over there every Sunday like I used to, but I don't think I would be able to live if I didn't go over there on Mother's Day. She probably would have sent some goons after me or something. I had to at least, show my face. But so I go over there at the end of the day, around 5 o'clock, around, dinner time. But the whole day for me is preparing myself for this dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mother's Day, it's when we were talking about this show and what we were going to talk about, it feels like a mourning, I'm mourning the relationship I have with my mom, even though my mom is alive. And it's
Boom, girl, boom.
weird because yeah, because it's I know people, I'm close to people who have lost their moms, literally lost their moms in the physical form.
Right.
And so it feels weird to say that I'm mourning my mom, even though she's alive. But, it's like I compared it to a door. So, like, little background about my mom. Um, she about 10 to 12 years ago had brain surgery, and she had a tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And I often refer to her as like pre-tumor mama and post-surgery mama. Pre-tumor mama was very, very bitchy and like very quick to fly off the handle. Like there would be moments in my childhood that I remember, and I wish I had done this, but like I wish I had have had a calendar and like marked off every day that she didn't talk to me, and then counted the days in a calendar year, because like she would go weeks without talking to me.
Really? In the same house?
In the same house. um so very like, and I don't want to give the impression that she was a bad mom. I think she did the best that she could, which is more, I deserved more than her best, but I think she did the best that she could. But so that was like her life before the surgery. So after the surgery, she is like super accommodating, super nice. But even that also comes with some weirdness, because I spent 20 something, 30 something years with one kind of mom, and now I have this new kind of mom, which, and neither one of them are open to like really having conversations that I need to have with them. And you know, like for example, I think it was not this Mother's Day, but maybe last Mother's Day, everybody was sharing like on Facebook, and Mother's Day on social media can be the worst if you already have like a complicated relationship, or if your mom is not with you or whatever.
Right.
It's rough. So, people were sharing like, this is what my mom taught me. I wouldn't be the woman that I am without her, or I wouldn't be the man that I am without her, whatever. And so I got to thinking, like, what what life lessons has my mom taught me? And I drew a blank. I could not think of one thing or one situation where we like had a moment where it was like, okay, I was going down this one road and she corrected my course, and then we talked about it. And so I was like, no, Andrea, you must be forgetting something, like she's talking something. Well, turns out that I asked her that Mother's Day, and she looked at me and she said, yeah, I don't really think I taught you anything. And I was like, well, I guess we agree on that.
I mean, maybe in that moment she taught accountability.
So, it's like, yeah, there's just like a disconnect between us on, like I said, the conversations that I want to have with her. And like, she's just not capable of those like deep, emotional, attached conversations. She's just not ready for it yet. And I don't think she'll ever be. So, I compared it to a door. So like the door before was like the steel door that wasn't decorated. It was cold. It was hard. It was hard to get through. So now the door looks better and it's prettier, and it's, maybe like padded, like it's softer.
Got the side lights.
Yeah, it's got the side lights. It's decorated. It's pretty. It's, it's festive, but like it's still a door that's closed. And like whether it was the steel door or like the pretty door, like I still can't get through. And like there's still possibly something on the other side of that I just won't ever know. I just won't ever understand how she feels about certain things, or if she feels anything about certain things. So yeah, it's a lot.
There's a lot. Uh, First of all, have I told you lately that I love you? That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's an amazing analogy. And it's so funny because my experience with my mother is similar, but different because my mom is an open door. But uh, maybe a revolving door that I can't. She's amazing, and it's funny because you asked about, you said the question my mom has, when I think about her. So there's two things about what you said, and one is, so to talk to, and I'll put these in a box. One is the thing with my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
but with my own mom, uh, Mother's Day was different because, so I'll be perfectly honest. One, Mom, I apologize because I had every intention on discussing that out with you, that I was going to have this episode, but I didn't. Um, and but I won't embarrass you. um, but last year, my mom did not spend Mother's Day with me, and while our relationship is complicated, it was a hard Mother's Day for me because my own son didn't acknowledge me. And I don't need to be acknowledged so much, but I didn't hear from him. He wasn't here. And our relationship is really strained at the moment. And I ended up, and my grandmother, my mom's mom, has Alzheimer's. And my mom didn't want to, she needed a break from her, which is fair. But I ended up kind of having to take her on. I had my dad's mom, who, by the way, I lost since our last episode. We lost her. And then Howard, my partner, his mom, and his sister, and his mom's friend. And it was just like, okay, well, it was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Howard's mom. I love my grandma's, but at the same time, I'm like, well, damn, I don't have my mom or my son. So last year was pretty sucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it this year, and I'm like, you know what, there is so much pressure for Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much pressure, and part of the pressure is to acknowledge your mother. Part of the pressure is to not be disappointed, but not to set your expectations too high as a mother. Because as mothers, I saw this meme and I can't remember it, but it was something like, for Mother's Day, we just want everybody to leave us the fuck alone.
Yeah.
And fathers are like, come on, let's do everything as a family. And I'm like, every mother, all my girlfriends are like, yeah, especially now, like, and I had a lovely Mother's Day. Howard and Jacob did beautiful, like it was beautiful. But I typically, for Mother's Day, do feel that way, like it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So this year was nice because it was quiet. I didn't have to entertain. There wasn't that pressure,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. But then I was thinking, just kind of like, why is it so disappointing? Like, why can't I just be grateful? Oh, they're having a day to acknowledge mothers. But I think I just have a very different, I will even say, hardened position on parenthood in general.
Mm-hmm.
And, my mom definitely taught me. I will give her 1,000% credit. And I'm very grateful to her for teaching me, if you will, or showing me um, like unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
What I can say about Dawn Risnay is that she not allowed, but she embraces who we are. It doesn't matter who we are. Like my brother and I are proof of that, because we are off the hook as far as kids go. Like we are the bookends and we are a problem. And she blocks all that out, and she just wants us to love her back. But that's exhausting too, but I also, as a mom, I get that, but she taught me how to love my children. She showed me how to love my children. And it's funny because her mom showed me how to love my children. My dad's mom loved us in a different way. And I can't say that she influenced how I love my children. And now that I know some of the things that I know why, but she definitely taught me that. But what she didn't teach me, or what I had to get myself, I should say, are those hard life lessons, like that, and some of that structure and discipline that I just as a person crave.
Yeah, same.
Because innately, that's not me. Innately, I'm just kind of all over the place, and I am, I do what I want and I say what I want. But she encouraged that. She encouraged, say what you want, say what you feel, but at the same time, her own insecurities trickled down to me in some ways. And, there were those moments where when I look back and I'm like, dang, and I think about how it influenced me as a mom. Because what I tried to do was I tried to be that mom and, give some structure to Eric and all that stuff. I clearly was not good at it because the boy has no government. But and then this too, Andrea, I thought about how hard I am on my mom. And then I thought about my dad. And I was like, I kind of put my dad on this pedestal.
Same.
And I thought about it and I'm like, is that fair? And putting them in two separate spots, it is fair. What I put him on the pedestal for, he deserves. But he's not off the hook. Like, there are a lot of things that I needed from him that I didn't get. And most of it really has to do with those things that would have influenced my relationships.
Right.
And my self-esteem. That's it. But everything else, that protector, that provider, that always there, that was him. She loved me. I mean, like, seriously, like, there's no, with her, with both of them, but with my mom, there's no, I love one child more, or I'm endeared toward one child more. Like, even with my dad, I'll say he gravitated toward the ones that he could understand more. He gave us all equal time, but he connected definitely with my sisters a little bit better, because they are not hotheads. I am a hothead, and he doesn't do well with hothead. Again, learning some things, I understand that. I'm a hothead. My mom is like, okay, you be a hothead. Like, right. If that's you, I love that about you. And you'll be okay. But what I needed from her was, you'll be okay. And you need to shut the fuck up and sit down. You need to check yourself. You're gonna have problems if you don't chill the fuck out. I needed that a little bit. And I needed her to say, you're better than that dude. You're better than him. And instead of, because there was more like, you deserve him instead of he deserves you. Because she just believes in love so much. Yep. And I think it just translated poorly. I think her intentions were great, but I think it translated poorly.
Yeah, and I can say something similar to that. I mean, I guess if my mom taught me anything, it would be what not to do in relationships, which I did not really. I mean, that would be the lesson of what not to do, but I definitely lean in, lean in those mistakes also
Yeah.
that she made. So and I also made the same mistakes. But to touch on something that you said earlier, like pre-surgery mom is part of the reason why I never really considered having children.
Hmm.
Like I was like, I'm good because I don't want, to be quite honest, like I don't want to bring my child or a child into the world and have this person be his or her grandma. Like
Mm.
I had her mom was very much the say as I do, I mean, do as I say type person. Like kids need to be seen, not heard,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And there's a time and place for that. I don't think it's I don't think that's appropriate for every kid, every situation, all
Right.
the time. But and my mom was a little better in that regard. I mean, a little better. I'm not gonna be honest. A little better in
I've got to make sure I find that thumbnail.
right, right. um, but my father's mother was literally an angel walking this earth. She was the sweetest, the most loving, the most giving, just just a delight, just a
Aw.
just a delightful person to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And and I was like, well, if my future kid can't have that, then that's a wrap. Like I don't like I'm good. And so, when I think about the lessons that she taught me
Sorry.
on what not to do by default, um yeah, like she stayed with men that were under the quality of what she was bringing to the table. Like
Mm-hmm.
they weren't equally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's something that I can definitely relate to in my last relationship is like, yeah, like, and I felt, and when I finally talked to my mom about the way that my last relationship ended, because as a side note, I don't talk to her about much. So
Mm-hmm.
like she doesn't really know a lot of things in my personal life. But I was having such a hard time at this one particular day as I was getting over my breakup that I was over her house and there was just no other choice. Like I couldn't stop crying. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I gotta fucking tell her like what's going on. And I explained to her everything that happened. And then she was like, oh, you're just like me. And that killed me
Oh
because I
yeah.
was like, that's exactly what I never wanted to be. I never wanted to be the Stephanie in a relationship. And many, many, many therapy sessions about her saying that, many, many, many. But it was like, I mean, it humbled me a bit because I had to think about it like on paper it looks a lot like we did the same thing as far as like our relationships.
Yeah.
But I think I was willfully doing it and she was kind of like duped into doing it. So like
Mm-hmm.
I always had a choice and I made the choices that I made and I did what I did. But like, so, I mean, that gives me just a little bit of like, I guess, I don't know, happiness is not the right word, but like
Comfort,
comfort. Yeah. Like,
solace.
yeah, yeah. Just a little bit, just a little bit. But, I think that my mom's relationships with men, I can remember one time she picked me up from school. This had to be sixth or seventh grade. And she picked me up from my grandmother's house because I would go there after school. And I would get in the car, nothing. Wouldn't ask me about my day, wouldn't talk to me at all, really. And so, it was about a 15 to 20-minute drive home. Silence, nothing. Soon as she gets in the house, with her living boyfriend, oh, how was your day? What did you do? Yeah, I'm about to make dinner. Uh, Tell me all about who you talked to today. Like, just like so night and day. And I was just like it was such, like, those kind of moments happened so often in my childhood that it was just kind of like it separated me. It made me pull back from her even more, because I was just like I'm your daughter though.
Right.
Like,
And he's Gerald.
yeah, he's gonna come and go. And he definitely went, like, so it was so it was like so many of those little moments that kind of just like made me understand like the dynamics of our relationship, and taught me very early not to expect a whole lot,
Yeah.
to be honest.
And my mom has always been like, oh, she's always craved conversation with us. But like we are like her friends, and that in itself is pressure, you know. Um, but she was always open to conversation, but I think it's that because she did not really open herself up to a lot of friendships, and she didn't garner some of the experiences and perspectives of other people, that when I did, and I won't speak for my sisters, I can speak for myself, when I did, as my life progressed a little bit and I started to kind of take on mentors and see it and get, I had a pretty big friend circle, and a lot of those women were quite successful. And I think about how, I think those conversations were hard because I started to see her as um, I guess I started to see her as weak, and and that hurt,
Mm-hmm.
because I needed something. I needed guidance. I wanted that strength. Now, the reality is she, she had 4 kids, and she had some really spectacular moments as of strength as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
But but my perspective had changed, and I was unwilling to see that, because now I saw something that I was missing, and I'm an all or nothing type of person. It's very hard for me to, well, that let me retract that. I do live in the gray most of the time, but I'm an extreme person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an extreme person. So like if I'm done with something, I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm.
But because I live in the gray, it takes me a long time to like get to that point,
So,
But like if I hate, I hate. Like whether it's a person, place, or thing. But if I love, whether
mhm.
it's a person, place, or thing. So I started to see her, I started to see her in a different way, because I started comparing her and not just accepting this is my mom. She loves me,
Mhm.
like, and these people love me, but not like she loves me.
Mhm.
All I could see was what she hadn't done for me. Like, why hadn't she taught me this? Because now I'm 25 and I'm just learning this, and I'm behind my friends, and now I'm 30, and now I'm 35, and now I'm 45, and God damn it, I wish I had this, or I
Yep.
wish I knew this. And I wish that she had stopped me from walking out the door when I went after that person. Or
Mhm.
I wish she had more courage to she wanted to be my friend so bad that I felt like it kind of um, like took away some of her courage to say, you ain't right, girl.
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
and I don't fault her for that, actually, because I understand. I want to be close to my son. But at the same time, and now I'm stuck in this place where I want to be close to him because it was he and I for so long. But at the same time, I feel like I'm starting to feel like the toxic mother because I'm constantly on his head about, you know, no, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. And then I find myself in a back and forth with this 23-year-old who, you know, has a whole lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm like, okay, I see what or he tells me, you know, he's very clear on how he feels about me. But it's clear that my mom taught, because my mom taught me to say how I feel, whether it's about her or anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And while I have found myself, I just told my son a couple of weeks ago, you will never speak to me like that again.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to express yourself. So I don't know what you do with that information. I don't know what you do with that information because I mean, I'm his mom, but I'm still a person, and I don't want him to put me on this pedestal. I want him, my hope is that he adopts some of the values that I have tried to instill in him.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, if he can't stand up to me, who will he be able to stand up to? So that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's hard. And my mom, I mean, she didn't do much that made us have to like come at her. You know, she's so mild mannered. We
Mm-hmm.
let us do whatever we wanted. Like we just
Mm-hmm.
do, you know, we just do what we want. Because she wanted us to be happy. And her mom was so helicopter
Mm-hmm.
that she was going kind of, you know, in the opposite direction with her
Right.
children.
Right.
Um, and it's just weird how those things. And now I was more the helicopter mom with Eric, and still am to some degree, I guess, as much as I can be. But um, and it just kind of like, uh, you know, I don't know. It's weird, and I try, um, but I am such a difficult person that having that, you know, softening myself is a hard thing for me, and I try. And so this week, actually, going into some of the stuff that happened this week, you know, one of those things that happened, you and I talked about this a little bit before we got together, about their need to be needed.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I think that just convinced myself that I don't need her because I'm not getting from her what I want.
Yep.
And so I just kind of shut that out. But then, you know, she has like this huge, she's great at genealogy, and she's been doing family history. And I've kind of always been like, I don't know those people. I don't care. I know the
Mm-hmm.
people who are here today. That's all that
Right. Right.
counts.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's nice. That's sweet. You know, oh, okay. You know, I entertain it, but I never really dived into it, even though it's important to her because it's something that it's her thing. And this week, you know, this is one of those lessons that as a child, you're like, oh, see, you need your mama.
Mm-hmm.
And this week, as I'm trying to figure out my grandmother's story, my dad's mother, not her mother, my dad's mother, I'm trying to figure out her story because this woman was a vault.
Mm-hmm.
Like secrets and lies all over the place, I mean, like a fucking apparition. I'm like, does she even exist? Like, records are scarce, and the records we have, she took and she made them what she needed them to be. Like, she
Oh,
was
wow.
that hardcore, right? And you know, I think it's kind of cool. And so my cousin and I have actually, my cousin is being very protective, and she has what little bit she has and she won't share. She's being very protective of it. And
Mm-hmm.
it was frustrating. I'm like, I'm gonna find this out on my own. So I started making calls. My mom got to digging, and I did find out some shit. And looking at it, I'm like, okay. Um, so now I see who she was, and who she was is amazing. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
the story, like when I get the story all together, I'm like, this story might have to be told.
I was gonna say, like, with you as like a writer, like you might have to write this book.
Maybe because the chick is a G. Like I need some of that in me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but I couldn't get I wouldn't have been able to get to where the information all by myself. I'm nosy. I'm a researcher by nature, not scientific. So let me be clear, but an investigator by nature. But I couldn't have gotten as far as I have in the story without my mother, because my mother was like, oh, nope, I found this person. She plugged in whatever she does. And
Mm-hmm.
she was able to pull up information. And I've been piecing this puzzle together. And it's been an amazing week, an amazing journey. And I credit my mom with that, because I have been able to really start knowing what I consider to be a piece of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because my whole life is really uh, identified by my maternal side
Mm-hmm.
and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he has this huge family, but I've never really identified with that family.
Right.
But now that I have his sister, who I want us to bring her on, because it's like talking to a professor. Like, she's amazing.
Yes.
I have this sister. This sister of his who told me something that just gave me insight into my dad and who he was and why he may not have done some of those things I needed him to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I hate when people say right. That's so pompous. And so
that's how you know that you talking that good shit, like, right?
I'm buying my shit. I need you to buy it too.
Right, like, right? Right.
And most of the time, the people who are saying it don't really have shit to say.
Right.
And so they just want you to nod in agreement and throw you off a little bit. So now the irony and the way the universe works is that these two women, who for the majority of the time that they were acquainted, bumped heads, did not really care for each other, my grandmother and my mom.
Mm-hmm.
They both softened toward each other in later years. Like, they grew to love each other, but
Mm-hmm.
it took probably 40 years.
Yeah.
But now my mom is like, okay, supporting me in my need to know.
Wow.
And
That's beautiful, though.
it is beautiful. And this whole week has been quite stressful and quite beautiful around this whole thing. But that's where she comes in, and that's where the dawn comes in. That is the dawn I need, because she is supporting me when I feel like others are making me feel like I'm, just need to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Or, my cousin said, I'm just inclined to let her past be her past. And I'm like, she ain't here. So it's all the past.
Right.
And why is it so bad? Like, why, who cares? Like, I don't care if she was like, ran a brothel. Like, I want to know the story. It's part of who I am.
Right.
And I think it's fair.
Yeah.
And my mom is supporting me in my obsession right now. And I'm so grateful, because this is one of those moments. And what you said earlier about needing to be needed, this is that moment where, and I can tell, because we probably talked this week more in 2 phone calls more than we speak in a year. And just meaning, like, I talk to her every day, but just meaning on a bigger level, because I don't share much either, because I have a short fuse.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair to her, I keep it,
Yep. Yep.
but I could just tell, like, how happy it's making her to be involved in this process. And I have to open myself up to that.
Yep. And like, so quick story, to just show you like the difference between pre-surgery and post-surgery mom. So pre-surgery mom, I was going to Alabama with my dad and my grandma and my uncle for a family reunion. I was getting ready to go, I was packing up, washing clothes. And, my 14, 15-year-old brain must have like left a load of clothes in the washing machine in a rush to try to like pack and, you know, get stuff together. And I was gone probably, we drove, so I was gone probably for about a week and a half, maybe. And my mom not only let my clothes sit, but took the clothes out of the washer and dryer, put them on the floor and let them mold, and basically was like, I'm not your fucking maid, and don't leave this shit in the washer again, right? And I'm like, cool, yeah, like I probably shouldn't have left them in the washer and dryer, but it's also not like I was sitting on my ass in the house and just kind of like, whatever, letting them go. Now she does my laundry, and I am not afraid to admit that as a 38-year-old. She I bring clothes over when I need them washed, and she literally gets sad if I show up and I don't have clothes for her to wash. Like, she is like, "Oh, you didn't bring any clothes today?" Like, she's a need to be needed. Like, this is something, washing my clothes and cooking me a Sunday dinner is something that she can do. And that's her way of showing love. And, so at some point you just have to accept that that's how they show love. And that's like your mom helping you with this background research. Like, that's how,
That is her love. That is her love. And
you know
it gives her purpose. And I
mhm
think that, my mom was a stay-at-home wife and mother for so long that she kind of, you know, that was her purpose, really. And I think that, while she ended up going into the workforce later after she and my father divorced, and um I think that her comfort zone just sits with us.
mhm
And so you're right, that is her love. But then I kind of, again, it takes me back to me as a mom, and I'm like, well, is that who I am? Do I need Eric to need me?
mhm
And I kind of don't. I don't want him to. And
mhm
I've talked myself through this a lot. I don't want him to. And I'll be honest, I almost asked you if we could bring him on today to, like, just to
oh
be fully transparent with everyone, so that, his side could be told too. But um, his side is mostly, she doesn't give me money every time I need her. So, she hates, she wants her son to fail. Like, that's his thing. So until he matures a little bit, maybe, we'll hold off on that. but no, I don't want him to need me. I want him to, you know, I hope that my hope is that he will want to kick it with me at some point.
mhm
I don't want him to need me. I want him to be um self-sufficient.
mhm
I really want that for him. And I do things, I've stopped doing things at this point. Like, he's got 6 pissy garbage bags full of clothes that the cat peed on upstairs. And I was like, I thought about washing that stuff for him, but I'm like, you left your cat here, bro. So I'm just gonna let you come get these clothes and wash them. And
mhm
P.S., if your mama just wants to wash clothes, if I weren't such a control freak, I would let you take mine too. But I'm so weird about my laundry.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely took me a minute. It definitely took me a minute because I am the same way. But at some point, I was just like, this is not the hill that I want to die on.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay,
And
she
see,
wants to do it.
I think
Okay.
we will come to learn that I will fall on my own sword every fucking time. Like, every time. But yeah, I don't know, Andrea. I I love my mom. I love being a mom. I This is a relationship that I go through in my mind all the time. And I hope that we can get some guys on here, because what I think about, because there are 3 girls in my family and 1 boy, and I think about the mother-son dynamic, and particularly in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as we sit here and open up and talk about these things, and we can very clearly identify what the needs are, what the flaws are, who we are because of our relationship with our mom.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like men have such a harder time, or I should say this, my experience has been that rarely that men give their mom a pass much more easily than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they put their mothers on these pedestals. And I think about my dad and his mom. And while my grandmother put my dad on his own pedestal, like she was bursting with pride over him.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at who she was, you talk about boyfriends and all that. Like, she always had a different man. Hey, right. She always had a different man. He's told stories to my mom just about how she was kind of doing her own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a mother that I can relate to.
Right.
I have always been, I did my own thing, but I didn't do anything until after my child at that time, when I was a single mom with Eric, was in bed. Like he was always first priority.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking about, like, I wasn't on that baby boy, mama got to have a life too.
Right.
I wasn't on that. It was like, oh, I can have a life after I'm a mom.
Right.
And, I don't relate to that. And therefore I don't have respect for that type of mother.
Mm-hmm.
I love my grandmother, and I'm not speaking of her specifically. I'm saying that type of mother.
Right.
And like, even I'm very judgmental. I think I got into it with somebody a little bit on Facebook today because of I'm so judgmental. And, like, I see, for instance, Instagram, and I'm like, if it's more selfies of you, looking fly, and I don't see you being a mom, and I know you have
Right.
kids, like, I don't see you actually being a mom, not the cute pictures.
Right. Right.
If there's nothing about, like, that real mom shit, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm judging you all the time. It just doesn't sit well with me. I don't understand it. And with my dad, he was on the spot for his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing got by him, and I look at, even, I think it was you I told, like, even Eric, my son, he can't stand me right now. But doing a little bit of lurking, I looked on his Instagram, and he's got this beautiful picture of him and me, and I'm sure it's probably because he looks good in the picture. But he has this picture of us for Mother's Day, and he wrote something, semi-sweet for for Mother's Day, and I'm like, this kid doesn't even like me, but here he is,
But also,
giving.
can we talk about how he has your whole face though? So, like, if he looked good in the picture, then you also probably look good in the picture because he has your whole face. Like, just like, for real.
Girl, I earned that face because it
Right.
wasn't I earned that whole face because it was because growing up, it was always his dad's face, and I was like, I don't even see his face. Why am I looking right at it?
Right.
I earned that face, man.
Mm-hmm. Whole face.
But thank you. But yeah, I look at, and so many guys are like that. They will not confront their mothers about her shit. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
won't. They won't. And I don't mean confront, but they won't have those conversations like, this hurt me. They won't say that. We can barely get our guys to go to therapy, but they won't have those conversations to say, you know, And that was one of the reasons why it was so hard to get somebody on here with us, because thinking about who would be that transparent to say,
Yep.
yeah, I love her, but she hurt me, or this behavior hurt me, and this is why I do what I do now. This
Right.
is why I think of women the way I think. This is why I don't think of women in a certain way. But she is the end all be all. But
Mm-hmm.
she's the first one to hurt me. She hurt me. And now I expect for this woman to make up for what she
Yep.
did or didn't do.
Yep.
And I looking at my dad, I'm like, okay, I see now why he was who he was
Mm-hmm.
as a man, not as a father, but as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, between your mother and your father, because we ain't letting the daddy off the hook.
Right.
This is Mother's Day. Let's go to Father's Day later. But I see what it is, and that's why I wore this shirt today. If it's not one thing, it's your mother,
Right.
Sigmund Freud. And I think that as the mother of sons, that's hard to kind of dive into, because you always hear how your sons, and Jacob, I wish I had pulled his card. He made me this Mother's Day card, and he was like, it must be so hard being the only woman in the house, and you're really a boss. And I was like, I didn't even know
Right.
what that means. And I'm like, I mean, right now Jacob's 9, so he sees me in a certain way. But in 2 years, I'm not gonna be a boss. I'm gonna be a bitch. Like he's gonna be pissed at me. But right now, I still have my little kissy face, and
Yeah.
I'll enjoy it. But I'm like, what am I doing as a mother to cultivate healthy relationships in my sons?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that, because men won't be honest and won't really say, you
Yep.
know, they won't admit that, yes, I'm looking for that from you or
Yeah.
from the next woman or whatever. And no, I
Yep.
can't, my mama was a trip, and now,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thinking about my ex, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine about him, and like his mom passed away probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And like I was telling my friend, I was like, because I still feel like I have, like, there's things that I want to say, but much like my mother, like I'm not going to get the response. Like if I have this conversation, I'm not going to get the response that I want. So like I'm just not having this conversation. But a part of what I wanted to tell him, which I think can apply to daughters and mothers, sons and mothers, people in general, is just like, stop fucking running. Like stop running from these problems. Like
yeah,
stop running from the complicated relationship you have with your mom. Stop running from the fact that are you have complicated relationships with friends, with your peers. Stop
yeah,
running from your potential. Like stop running from the problems. Like it is normal and natural and understandable to have lost your mom or to have a complicated relationship with your mom and
right,
have that affect you in some kind of way. It is
right,
okay. Like this is, like, everybody, like, you're taught that your mom is supposed to be the woman in your life, male or
mm-hmm,
female. Like
yep, yep,
like if you're a daughter, like this is the kind of woman, this is the kind of
be
mom
like your mama.
to be. Yeah. If you're a man and a son, like this is the kind of woman that you need to marry. Like you need to find somebody that's like your mom, or you need to or conversely, you don't need to find somebody like your mom. You need to find, or you searching for the opposite. But like it's understandable to have those issues with your mom and your dad and other people in your family, and stop fucking running from it. Like
Girl, word.
just
And can we just put this out there so that we can table this for Father's Day? But how, because because again, they get let off the hook, you know, as
Mhm.
we as children. The mothers don't let them off the hook, but as children, we let the fathers off the hook.
Oh, for
But
sure.
can we talk about how maybe, you know, because it's either this dynamic, you need to be more like your mother, or you
Mhm.
need to listen to your mother, or see how your mother does that, or is it that one of those things that get inside of us and get in our head, if we know that we have a Rolling Stone kind of father, or if we know that we have, you know, a dad that's stepping out, or if we know that you know our father is, you know, that our mother is not necessarily his preference, well then is that telling us, if we're putting our fathers on pedestals and that's telling, and we're like, okay,
Ooh,
so is that telling us,
layers.
you know,
Layers.
right,
Wow.
is that
Yeah.
telling us, like, is that like instilling in us that, you know, no, I'm not going to be like her, and is that closing us off to seeing who our mothers really are?
Ooh.
Like, is that what that's doing? Like, what is that doing to us? You know,
Right.
because we're not hating them because of it.
Right.
We're
Right.
able to see, you know, for the most part, some people do,
Yeah.
obviously.
Right.
You know, these are our generalizations and our observations, and we know that there are experiences that are broad and unique,
Mhm.
but we know that that is an experience.
Yep.
We
Yep.
know, you know, so especially if we have somebody who's a stand-up person, but we know that they're not necessarily pouring into our mother. Well, is that, does that mean that she's not worth it?
Right.
That
And then yeah, and then like, so you want me to be like her, but you don't even want her.
exactly.
So like what does that mean? And like, yeah, it's the same similar kind of a similar dynamic, maybe reversed. We'll see as I talk this through. But like um yeah, like I definitely put my dad on a pedestal as well. And always have, mainly because he was just cooler. Like he was
Mhm,
just cooler than my mom. And like he was not perfect by no means, but he allowed me a voice. So like when I stayed with him, you know, because we did like the weekends on, weekends
mhm,
off type thing. When I stayed with him, he was like, he would let me talk about things and he would let me express my opinion. And you know, I had to be respectful obviously, but like there wasn't anything that I couldn't say or that I couldn't talk about. I mean, there were things that I didn't want to talk about
mhm,
perhaps, but like whatever I wanted to talk about, I certainly had a platform for it. And my mom, though, like their dynamic was, so I was born in August of 81. By January of 82, she had already moved out.
mhm,
So, you know, and he would always talk about that she was all about him, like he could do no wrong, whatever he wanted she would do, blah 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 blah. And then something switched and she kind of shut down. And I mean, it probably was because, I don't know the whole story, but it probably was because like my dad, sometimes he just wouldn't go to work. You know, it was like the early 80s, or you know, late 70s
mhm.
or early 80s. And you know, he was 26, no, 27, 28. So he was young and like smoking weed and just living, you know, and like
Yeah.
wasn't really like probably as focused as he could have been. And that probably pissed my mom off. But the thing about it is that the opposite of what you were just talking about, my dad actually, and this is what he would say, my dad actually wanted to build with my mom though. Like
Mhm.
he wanted,
Same.
yeah, you know,
Same.
yeah. So like he wanted to have this, like, you know, we're buying houses together and we're vacationing and we're having you know, multiple children. And like,
Mhm.
and my mom was just like, I'm out. And you know, I just don't, yeah, so like I guess I look at it like, because I put my dad on a pedestal, I always fault my mom, and maybe that's not fair. It's probably not fair. But I always look at her like, you were the one that didn't live up to the agreement. Like, he was, with his faults, like he still wanted to be there. And
Mhm.
like, you were the one that walked away, and you were the one that didn't want to, you know, commit and be whatever, you know?
Right, but listen, so what you just said, so with my parents, I had to learn that, or I should say I grew to learn, like I went through phases, like at one point it's his fault, at one point it's her fault, and then as you grow up and you get into relationships and you learn how complicated relationships are,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, and you learn who they are as people, as a man
Yep.
and a woman, you're like, okay, it's both their fault.
Yep.
But my parents got married very young, and who my father was at the time we lost him is not who he was when he was a 19-year-old boy
Mm-hmm.
getting married. And then by the time he grew into that man who was ready to say, he always wanted to be there. He was always committed, but to lean into being a husband, like a partner, if you will, not even a husband, because that's just a title, but a true partner, by that time, my mom I don't think my mom necessarily had the chance to even learn how to be, even though her parents were married and a great example of partnership. But I don't think in her own marriage, she really had a chance to grow to understand that partnership and to learn the forgiveness at the time, because you're young. Think about, even at 30, you're young,
Yep.
don't know really what forgiveness is, and what things should deserve to be forgiven and what things don't.
Yes.
Because not everything deserves forgiveness. I'm sorry. Come for
Yeah.
me if you want to, but I don't. For this things I do not forgive. I just don't. I'll deal with that with whomever or whatever I have to deal with. But fuck you. I don't forgive everything.
Right.
So, I think that um, we look at those things, and we look at those relationships, and they shape us, but we just are incapable. And I wonder if I'll ever be fully capable of really. I think I'm almost there, because I definitely get that it's part one, part the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, looking further into it, I do think that, you know, because I look at my dad, and he's like, I found a letter he wrote to my mom uh, before he died. And he was just like, in the letter, he talks about how he has always wanted to be her best friend, and he hopes that, and he wants,
He
and he
was
want
not preparing to tear up. Okay.
and that, basically, like, he just appreciates who she was as a mother, and she's a great travel companion, and she's just opened him up to so many things, and is looking at my mom through his eyes, and that's important,
Mm-hmm.
you know and I think I posted about this too. And just, my dad was really into pictures, and I found, so one of the things that happened this week was I went to storage, because I knew there was some papers that I had seen before. And I sat there in storage, and I was like, Dad, you know what the fuck I'm looking for, just give it to me.
Right.
And
Right.
on my way out the door, no lie, I saw a pair of scissors. I reach in to get the scissors, and then I'm like, oh, keys, maybe I can open this safe. And then, like, all these hard drives and flash drives fell out. And Andrea, shit that's been missing for years, papers,
Wow.
pictures,
Wow.
everything, are like just all on this, thousands. Like, just one file alone had like 20,000 files in it. And I have multiple things of this. And in it, though, I'm looking through the pictures, and I'm looking at us through his eyes, and I'm looking at me as a mother
Mm-hmm.
through his eyes, and I'm looking at her as a mother through his eyes. And looking at my mother as a mother through my father's eyes, even though they didn't have the strongest marriage, is is a moment. It's
Yeah.
something when you stop and look at it and you're like, oh my God, there's a picture of her. I was 13 years old. We're on the beach. It's a picture that I won't post because neither one of us will probably appreciate it because we're both in swimsuits. And, but she's just sitting on the beach and she's helping me scratch my nose. Like, I mean, like my nose, my finger, I like probably was itchy and probably had, but she's helping me scratch my nose. And he captured that moment. And, you know, it's just one of those things. It's a silly, stupid moment, but we're on the beach in Florida and she's sitting there in her swimsuit, which was never a fun thing for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably, you know, a little bit chubby at 13 and, you know, we're just sitting there and she's just being mom. And then there's a picture of her holding my brother and he's just got this beautiful smile on his face. And there are pictures of her just looking at us. We're just doing nothing. And to see her through his eyes, you're like, oh my God. Like I didn't necessarily see that.
Right.
In their personal interaction.
But he had to frame it for you.
But he framed it the Mother's Day week, you know, and then he showed me as I'm doubting myself, because again, I don't see my son on Mother's Day because of quarantine and because he probably would have come anyway. But I'm seeing myself as a mom, you know, as I doubt myself, and I do doubt myself every day as a mother to him. You know, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I was there. I was doing the things I said I was doing. You know, I didn't miss these moments. I was right there, you know, and I'm going to have to find a way to put this stuff somewhere where one day he'll be able to see them and be able to look back and be like, okay, my mom did love me. And this is showing these little stupid ass moments where she's just looking at me. She's handing me a ball. She's just holding my little naked body, you know, she's nursing me, whatever the case may be, you know, she loved me. And those are those things that we need from our dads to validate our mothers for whatever reason. But again, that's putting our dad on the pedestal.
Yep.
Because we need his validation
to tell us that mom's okay.
To tell us mom's okay. Fuck is that about?
That could be a whole nother podcast. A whole nother episode.
Right. But I mean, I think the bottom line is that, like you said in the beginning, we do our best. Our moms do our best. And, you know, the bitch in me is like, so that lets us off the hook for all our shit?
Right.
No. But in the end, what we have to do as adults is sift through all that, acknowledge it. If we can, talk about it with them. Tell them that doesn't work for me in whatever way it has to happen, whether it's a letter, whether it's a passive aggressive post on social media, whether it's a direct conversation about whoever she is, because otherwise, how do we fix that? Because at this point now, it's up to us to fix it.
Yep.
But that doesn't let them off the hook for their behavior. It doesn't let me off the hook for my behavior as a mom. I wish my son would, I ask him all the time, specifically, what is your problem? Specifically, how are you feeling? Specifically, what is it that you feel I'm not doing for you? Specifically, because I need to know.
Right.
And, you know, and I hope that I can help him find some closure and some accountability and move on. And specifically, he doesn't have shit to say other than, you know, I want him to fail. But I'm like, oh, okay. But that's what we have to do now. We have to sit and have these conversations. Men, sit and have those conversations with your mother. Make her face her shit.
Yeah.
Make her face her. She is not, you know, that's the thing. We mix up, I feel like, you know, we're taught, oh, respect your mother and father, respect your mother, respect your mama, respect your mama. So again, going back to the dads, okay, you're telling me to respect my mother, but you're not respecting my mother.
Right.
You know, respect your mother, you know, oh, you can't talk to your mother like that. Well, no, you can't talk to me any kind of way, but you can tell me anything.
Right. Right.
So tell me how this made you feel. If it hurts me, it hurts me. Because I do have to be accountable. My son came at me about weed he found, and I'm like, Okay, you found weed. Well, I could be accountable for you finding weed, but guess what? That's weed I took from your car. So
So
but I take it so you would smoke it. That doesn't mean I don't smoke weed. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I do. It means that you can come to me and you can talk to me about it, but what you're not going to do is use it as a resource to not talk about your shit.
right.
So come, talk to
Yeah.
me, mama.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, I think that the conversation, hopefully this podcast will give people the courage to kind of have those conversations with their mother or father and or both. Um, but also understanding that in any conversation that you're trying to get closure on a situation, like, you got to come bearing your soul. Like, you can't just be like accusatory and just say you didn't and you didn't and you
Yeah,
didn't and you
yeah,
didn't. Like,
yeah. That's a great point.
you got to own your own shit too.
Yeah.
Like I know that if I was to try to have a conversation like that with my mom, that it would be that a situation happened when I was like 17 that kind of just made me shut down from her. And I, I took on well, if you don't ask, I don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
if you don't specifically ask me about my job or this freelance project or a guy I'm seeing or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then I don't tell you. Like, we talk about TV shows and grocery stores
Yeah.
and cats. That's pretty much all we talk about. So could I be better about that? Yeah, I could be. And I have been trying in the past few years to be more open and to like ask the questions that I want to ask, and be willing to accept whatever answer she gives me, like,
Yeah.
um I there was one question that I asked her. It was it came from a list of questions I found online, like questions to ask your parents before they die or whatever. So, super
This is
charitable.
important.
uh um and I was like, and one of the questions was, what's your proudest moment?
Mm.
And, you know, maybe I thought, something that happened in August of 81 might have been top of mind. You know, uh, maybe something that happened June of 99 or December of 2005 when I graduated college. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just thought one of those
Those
things.
big deal things,
Yeah.
right?
But the real answer was when she moved out and bought her Camaro in 79. So there's that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it was one of those things. It was just like, I would have loved for her to say, yeah, like when I brought you home, or
Mm-hmm.
when we celebrated your first birthday, or
When I kept you alive.
when I kept you alive for 18 years, and when you did this thing or did this other thing. Like, I would have loved for her to say that, and that would have felt validating, and it would have made me happy. But the reality is, that's her proudest moment.
Right.
That was her proudest moment. And I can't take that away from her. Like, that's what it was.
You're the bomb.
Thanks, boo.
You got it. You got it. So yeah, I'm with you. I hope that, we all, myself included, are able to have those conversations with with our moms. What I can say about my grandmother is, so all those files, and when I tell you there has to be 200,000 files
Good
that I
God.
found, and my dad has paperwork on every person. If you ever met him, if you ever came across him, he's got something on you scanned up in these files, whether it's a thank you card, whether it's your birth certificate, whether it's your mama's daddy's death certificate. He's got it all. You know, he's got wills. He's got everything.
I love it.
He's got receipts. But the one person he does not have anything on is my grandmother. And he's the one person that she trusted, the only person she trusted. So that tells us that, you know, it's deep. Whatever it is, it's deep.
Deep, yeah.
And it also gives me some insight as to her need to be a certain person in his eyes.
Oof, that's a word.
And she wasn't going to let him under any circumstance find out whatever it is that she's, you know, covering up. And I talked to her one living brother. There were 11 of them, and she has one brother living now. And I talked to him this week. And so my grandmother had a baby before my uncle, who's my father's older brother. She had a baby with her husband, who was my uncle at the time, his boy. My uncle had no recollection of this baby.
Oh my God.
So, but the baby was there 100%. This is not a myth. This is not, I have a picture of the baby. And that's really the only evidence of her past, other than whatever other paperwork my cousin might have. And so, you know, these conversations are important because, too, a woman like her, if she feels safe, if your mother is a woman like that, that's very closed, that's very private, that's very, you know, unless she's just like a hardened bitch, which some are, you know, maybe that creates that space for them to open up and start talking to you about where they were, where their head was, you know, because a lot of them, especially the older ones, aren't trained, you know, they haven't been programmed to do that.
Yeah.
And they're very good for shutting you down when you do ask questions. But, you know, if you're a Tiffany, you're going to push. Yeah. And I'm a pusher. Had I known just a fraction, just if I had sniffed out a little bit of this, I would have been pushing. I would have been pushing. But because my dad didn't say much about it, I wouldn't have thought some of these experiences existed. Because I'm like, he knows, you know. But push them, make them tell you. Yeah. And because what it also does is helps you find out more about yourself and why they reacted to you in the way that they did, or, you know, and it doesn't make it okay necessarily. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but I don't know anybody who doesn't want an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like, I think we've said this, and both of us have said this in a roundabout ways, this conversation, like I feel like you don't become an adult, like a for real grown up person, until you can see your parents as whole adult people outside of them being your parents. Yeah. So like, you know, learning that past, learning that history, even if you don't go back to like grandparents, but even just learning history about your own parents and like learning about who they were before they had you or in the early years of having you could make the world a difference, because then you can, like, you have a base, like you have a foundation to kind of understand what's going on. And like, you know, it took a while for me to get to the point where I had to realize, like, yeah, my mom was 25 when she had me. That's crazy young. And she didn't know what she was doing. And she had complicated feelings about her life and her job and where her life was going, and complicated feelings about my dad probably, and like all these things that, you know, maybe you don't think that would affect you, but it actually affects you a whole hell of a lot, because that ends up being the mom that cuddles you and nurses you and all that. And so if she didn't feel safe or secure or worthy or whatever, then there's no way that she can pass that on to you.
Right. She's too busy wilding out now.
Yeah.
And that's just gotta get her shit on. She's gotta get her, you know, so yeah. Or she's closed in. Either way.
Either way.
We have some work to do.
Yes.
We all have some work to do. And
all have some work to do.
You know, we encourage anyone who wants to have these conversations with us to give us a shout. And, you know, Mom, Dawn, Stephanie, we love y'all.
We do.
Thank you for making us who we are. we wouldn't be sitting here knowing each other. We wouldn't have the dysfunction and the, and the need
For
to talk
sure.
about it. And we wouldn't be encouraged to do it if it weren't for moms like you, whether it's because of you or in spite of you or
Yep.
whatever it is, it's only because of you.
Yep.
And we
Absolutely.
appreciate that. We love you. And it's a little late, but I always am. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. Happy
Don't,
Mother's Day.
don't forget to like and share and listen. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Thanks, guys.